Hey there, everybody. Matt Carter here.
And Jessica Carter from CarterMatt.com.
This is your look at The Expanse, Season 1, Episode 5, entitled Back to the Butcher. When you think about that title, you know what I think about?
What do you think about?
I left like a cut of sirloin, and I have to go back to the butcher to get it. All right, I'm done with terrible jokes.
That's not true, guys.
Yeah, it's probably not true. All right, so we're gonna talk about Fred Johnson. Now that I actually know his real name, and I won't just call him Chad Coleman for the remainder of this video, Fred Johnson, he's got a history, to say the least.
Say the least.
It doesn't really matter that the crew of what is now the Rosinante, they still, no matter what you call this ship, you might as well just call this ship the ship full of people who are screwed, because it doesn't seem like anything good ever happens to them.
No, it doesn't. Except Holden had all that coffee. My first episode where I felt a connection with them.
It's the coffee that does you in, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, alright. Well, we got a lot to discuss here, but before we dive into everything with The Expanse, if you enjoy this video, give us a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because as you probably know, we are discussing all sorts of Expanse-related goodness throughout the next several weeks leading into the show returning to Amazon. Alright, let us start. I mean, since we've already brought up the ship and talked a little bit about this, let's talk about the new state of horribleness for these poor people, because they have escaped the Donager, and the Donager has also escaped existence, by the way, because it's just, yeah, completely gone at this point. I will say, I thought there was a chance about halfway through this episode that we were eventually just going to see these people head on over to Ceres, and that was going to be sort of the path towards them all getting back together.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where I felt a bit sort of like Naomi, who didn't seem to really know where to go or what was the best place to go to. With Holden putting out that message, and now they know that his face is everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a bit harder for them because they're all connected to him and everything that has happened. So where really can they go?
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, going to Ceres, it makes sense from okay, we don't have to use as many locations perspective, but from the perspective of, bad things are probably going to happen to Holden there.
Yeah.
Bad things are probably going to happen to Holden everywhere at the moment.
Oh, well, bad things are going to happen to everybody if they go see Fred. That's what I'm starting to feel like. Yes. I could be wrong about that, but dear, holy smokes, I don't know.
Well, okay, here's the thing. I didn't know too much what to make about Fred from his appearance last time, other than that he had no problem, threatening the Mormon group and being...
Threat that Fred gave told me that this is a person that is willing to do a lot, and a lot of not so nice stuff. That little exchange made me nervous about him.
I just wondered if it was just he was a guy who really didn't want to get fired. I didn't know we were going into full-on, this guy has a name that is about how much he has killed people.
I don't know. Well, he just threatened to basically kill everybody that they were... He's doing all this work, and basically, if you're going to fire me, then I hope you want to die. I hope you don't mind dying slowly, horribly. All these horrible things are going to happen, and all the best.
Here's the thing about nicknames. If your nickname is the Butcher, you're probably a murderer. I mean, if your nickname is just Freddy, then maybe you're fun. And I feel like if you called him Freddy, he would murder you immediately. So I don't think that rolls.
Yeah, it was what I found, the scene that I found the most compelling, which might seem a little odd, but it felt like that moment when they were in their new ship, which is super amazing. It's got everything. We got Amos drinking, and we got Holden in his coffee, and Alex is relaxed. He's enjoying how slick this ship is. And then you have Naomi, who's laying in bed, curled up, because she knows some bad stuff is happening. It was a really good, interesting moment for me to see the three of them not really knowing what's coming, but having just a moment to be a little bit normal and not actually like, oh, the radio's out, oh my god, this ship is blown up, now this ship is blown up, now Shed has no head. It was nice to see that moment, but it was interesting to just see, you know, someone happy, and Naomi who feels like she knows what's about to happen.
Let's pose this question. Naomi said she didn't know Fred, but she knew people like Fred, that she knew what sort of man he was. Do you think Naomi actually does know Fred?
I think that Naomi knows more about Fred than she's letting on. My bigger question is, why is she not telling people what she knows about him? And what was the conversation that she had with Amos to make her actually change her mind to go to somebody named the Butcher?
I mean, it is an interesting question. I mean, we don't know all the finer details about Naomi's history, if there is one.
If there is one, it just feels like there's something. Whether it's they have a history, or she knows someone else that had a history, or just his reputation has preceded him across the universe.
Yeah, and I like the way that Amos kind of handled all of this, because, you know, it would be so easy to sort of categorize Amos as, okay, he's like the prototypical space dullard who really doesn't know all that much and is just a yes man. But we got a little bit more fleshed out here, because he basically said to Naomi, you know what? I usually follow your lead because your judgment is right, but you're not really giving me anything here to actually know where you're coming from, so give me something.
Yeah, and that was a really great moment that did move him into this sort of next level character, where he's not just a brute who will do whatever she says, that it is, okay, listen, I do have your back, and I always have your back, but I need to know why, in this particular situation, I am still having your back. What is it that's happening with this Fred guy that we're not going there?
Yeah, you have to work to fill in a few of those cracks, and maybe that happened and we just haven't seen it yet.
Well, something must have happened there for me, because Amos came around and was like, okay, we're going. And she came around and was like, okay, we're going. So I'm very curious what happened in that conversation.
Yeah, I'm also curious if after drinking all of that coffee, Holden is going to go to Butcher and be like, hey, Fred, nice to meet you. I'm Holden. Check out all my ship. See how cool it is. Like,
it's possible.
Probably not. But anyway.
Probably not. It was just, for me, I really loved that whole scene. I loved seeing just them enjoying a moment of the simpler things in life. Having a coffee and just having a minute to breathe.
Yeah, because it's about to get cut off very, very soon.
A lot has happened to this group. They deserve that moment, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Naomi, I don't know if she's having a moment.
No, she's having a different
time. She's having a cry. It's seemingly what she has going on. But, okay, well, that's what's happening there with the crew. I mean, this was an episode where it felt like we were, I want to say super linear, but we did have a smaller number of storylines. I mean, we did have those flashback sequences, which seemed to mostly just be, this is the story of how terrible Fred really is.
Yeah, it was... It just felt like it was there to bring me to the end point, which is he was working with the UN and he killed a whole bunch of people who had surrendered. With women, children, men, everybody, and everybody surrendered, and he blew them up anyways, and he's standing there watching children float by. It was to get to that moment, and boy, what a moment.
Yeah, terrifying.
Terrifying.
Yeah, he just did not care at all. I mean, maybe he's learned something over the past 11 years, or probably not based on what we saw this past time.
Yeah, he just threatened to basically let them have a ship built that's going to kill them eventually.
Yeah, this is not going to end well. I think that's what we know at the moment. I mean, there's not too much else to even talk about with the flashbacks other than just, oh, yeah, these people are all horribly screwed, and now they're dead.
Yeah.
But let's move over to series, because the biggest surprise is obviously who is not dead, and that somehow Havelock is actually, like, alive and having conversations. Anything is possible in the world of The Expanse.
Well, I think we mentioned this before, but on 911 we had somebody get a rebar through the head, and he's still alive and fine. So, yeah, we can have him have a rebar through the chest and still be here. And I'm glad that he is. I said this in the last video. I still stand by it. I like him because he is the one character that has a bit of positivity that's giving me those types of feels.
I like that he tried to get up and almost have a fight with Miller at one point in the hospital bed. I appreciate someone wanting to fight Miller here and there. Like, don't get me wrong, I am compelled by Miller. Miller needs to be challenged.
Sometimes he does, and it's good that he has a partner that does that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not 100% positive that Havelock is going to live all that long, because somebody could come and put another rebar through his chest, and I don't know if you survived 2 of these, but I think it kind of is a reflection, I guess, in some ways, and I think someone even said this in the comments on the last video, that this is all evidence to the medical technology in this particular era.
Yeah.
And we saw this elsewhere, too, with the treatment that Amos got on his leg.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's, here you go. Here's a brace, and then some black, I don't know, mask came out, and now you're all right. And he's walking around, and that seems all right to me.
Maybe that's why Shed was able to falsify so many of his things, because, like, all he had to do was just go put this stuff on it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's really that easy, then maybe, that is how it is so easy for Shed to be a doctor. Or was a doctor.
Yes, everything is past tense now with Shed, unfortunately. Shed's head is going to be floating by our good friend Fred Johnson very, very soon. But, all right, so in series, we see the continued adventures of Miller.
Yep.
It does not end particularly well for Miller within this episode.
No, but we did get to see the space hamster again, and that was really cool to see that come back into connection. And the whole thing that I really liked about that scene with the space hamster and getting the memory card.
Aren't you just glad that I have just made you think of Mass Effect every time you see the space hamster?
Listen, I don't know much about Mass Effect except for what I've seen with you when you're in your ship and there's a space hamster. That's about all I know about it, so that's why I'm here with the space hamster.
Yeah, but the space hamster, much more important to the story of the Expanse at the moment than it was on Mass Effect.
But what I loved about how the Expanse did it is that they showed it. And there's a lot of shows that will use dialogue instead of just showing me what's happening. So they showed him going into that room. There's memory cards everywhere. And then here's this little broken up space hamster. And he made the connection. He went and he went back and got the space hamster. And I really enjoyed that they did it all just visually.
Yeah, it was really cool. I think in general they had some cool stuff that they worked through this entire episode, especially the Miller storyline. I think the way they pieced together the clues leading back to the space hamster, that was really fascinating. The way that we got to see a little bit more backstory on Julie and got to see she's not just sort of like this entitled rich daughter that was sort of the picture that could have easily been painted of this character.
Yeah, and we got to learn a little bit more. We're still not learning a lot.
Yeah.
But things are starting to fit back together good. And we saw Jared Harris. He came back.
This Jared Harris scene was incredible because this is basically what Jared Harris does. There's this bar scene. He walks into it, and if I'm in Jared Harris's mind at the moment, I think he's just thinking, I am about to just blow everyone away for 3 minutes, and then I'm just going to walk out of this scene.
Yeah, he just came in and kicked it around and left. It was so good. If you can't tell, we are fans of Jared Harris. We loved him in Mad Men. I loved him in Chernobyl. He's just the terror. He is so incredible. Everything that he goes into, he's just a chameleon. And this role, we've only seen him the 2 times. For barely any time, and he's so compelling.
Yeah, Anderson Dawes is a man of great mystery because it seems like he has obvious, very deep connections with people who may have something to say about what Miller is doing, and yet here he is having face-to-face conversations with them. I mean, if he is more involved than he's letting on, is he just so confident that he won't be caught, that he's just so arrogant that he's willing to have these conversations?
He is obviously very protected by something, but he is willing to put himself out there to find out something, whatever his connection is to Julie and why it is as important as it is, that he's willing to hand over this guy to Miller if Miller's willing to take that bait.
And I think one of the things that's the most important for The Expanse right now in season 1 is casting is obviously super important, but villain casting is really important, especially if Jared Harris ends up being a sort of big bad figure, because if you have really compelling villains, it's so easy to get on board with everything else. And we have Chad Coleman, and now we have Jared Harris maybe being a villain.
Yeah, but I'm still out on whether or not
I don't know if he is.
Jared Harris or, Fred is a villain, because this whole world feels like, and I've seen this in the comments too, and I agree, I felt this, that everybody feels like they're good and bad, that they're doing things because they either feel it's right, they have to, they're in that position, they're hired for that position. Yeah. We know that Fred was part of the UN and he did this thing.
Yeah.
But we don't know anything else. We don't know why. We don't know if he was ordered to. We don't know if he was forced to. We don't know if he loved it. We don't know what it is yet. So, because in some ways I feel like Christian can look like she is also a bit of a villain, but I don't know. Well, and that's what I really like about the show. Sometimes it feels like, oh yeah, this was not so good. You just killed a whole bunch of people that just surrendered. That ain't great. But, maybe now he's in a different place and he's doing something else, and maybe he is actually going to help Holden and them. It's just, that's what's so good about the show. Well,
I always tend to speak in comparisons because I think that's what I understand really well. Yeah. And as someone who has watched a lot of The Blacklist and a lot of The Blacklist multiple times, I think what makes, a good comparison to me between the two shows is The Blacklist, so much of the story is painted by where you are in that particular moment, and then trying to understand what happened before and then what happened even before that. Yeah. And I think that applies to sort of the gray areas of The Expanse as well, because we're seeing Christian in this particular moment in the present. We're seeing somebody like Anderson Dawes. We're seeing someone like Fred. But we don't know what has all happened that sort of informs why they became, their own version, the Expanse version of Raymond Reddington or whoever you want to call it in the present now. Yeah. There's obviously things that have informed them. None of these are just purely mustache-twirling villains.
Or maybe it is, and we don't know yet because we haven't got there yet. But it could be leading us into that direction, or it could be leading us more, like you said, into a Raymond Reddington who has done terrible things. But again, it's all kind of a gray area of why is he doing these terrible things? What is the gain of these terrible things? Is it riches? Is it to help somebody? Like, what is it? And The Expanse is doing that really well, where it's bringing these difficult choices that people have made and making us think about whether or not they're being done for the right reasons.
I just think that these characters, none of them probably at whatever their formative stage was probably thinking, I want to destroy all of these sort of people. There's something that has happened to bring them all to this place. I don't know if we're going to get the sense of what it is over the course of this series, but I'm interested in finding out, and I think that's the best compliment that I can give through 5 episodes anyway.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to talk about here before we wrap this edition up and we continue our journey through the show for the first time into episode 6?
No, this was a good episode. Of course, there was no Christian in this episode, and everyone who's been watching these knows that I really love her, so that was a little bit disappointing, but it made sense for this particular story to not have her in there, but I'm looking forward to her coming back.
And I'm sure she will, and I'm sure she'll probably have a big spotlight episode at some point. Just do what's right for the story. If we don't need Miller for an episode, Absolutely. It's okay. If we don't need Christian, it's okay. Don't throw them in for no reason.
Yeah, this was a good episode for me because I had been having a really hard time making a connection to Holden, and I found something. So that helps me out in my journey on this show.
All right, well, with that in mind, we're going to go and try to get some coffee with Holden and see what kind of roasting technique he recommends.
Yes.
But now, we want to know from you guys, what did you think about Episode 5 of The Expanse Season 1 upon watching for the first time? Let us know in the comments and give us a like, subscribe, and you can support us further by checking that link in the description to the Carter Matt store, and we'll see you here next time